I seem to have spent a ridiculous amount of the last few years writing this strange book, and it's a book about these things, which are netsuke. As you can see, they're small, smaller than a matchbox, and they are very tactile, and they're Japanese, and they are made 200 years ago, between 100 and 200 years ago, out of ivory and wood and bone, and they're very beautiful. They're animals, and people, and masks, and all kinds of things. And in a very strange way, I inherited a huge collection of them, 264 of them, and I tried to work out what I'd inherited, what this strange inheritance actually meant. Not just what they are, because they're beautiful and odd and very funny and erotic and bizarre and all kinds, and it's creepy, some of them as well, but actually what I wanted to know was why they'd been collected, why the collection stayed together, and where the collection had been. And so I started to write a book which was really retracing these objects, these odd objects, back through my family, through the people who'd collected them, all the people who passed them on, all the people who looked after them, and the journey got more and more complicated, and more interesting, and more compelling for me, until it actually completely took over my life, and I realised that I had to research the story, I had to write the story, I had to write the story because I needed to pass on the story. I thought I knew exactly what the story was. I first saw the netsuke in my great-uncle's apartment in Tokyo. My great-uncle Iggy, a very lovely elderly man, in his apartment in Tokyo, when I first went to Japan to work as a potter there 30 years ago. And I first saw them in this great vitrine, this great glass case, one whole wall of his apartment was filled with them. And then I knew where the story was supposed to be. The story was supposed to start. They were collected by a cousin in Paris in the 1870s, and then they went to Vienna for my great-grandfather, and they survived the war in a very peculiar way, and then were taken to Japan, and then came to me. So that was the rudiment, that was the bones of the story that I knew. Paris, Vienna, Tokyo. That's where I knew I had to go. But like all good family stories, that was on the surface, but underneath there was this whole extraordinary other story going on. And the story became very, very and the story became very compelling. It became very it took me over. I thought I could write a very straightforward story about these objects. I thought I could tell a story about the story of Japanese art over 150 years in Europe. What became clear to me through the story was that it was really a story about identity, about what families tell each other, tell their children about who they are and where they come from. And so it's a story. My story really is about memory and objects, and families and objects, and a story really about what happens in families, about storytelling.